Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I want to discuss Baby Reindeer and the chaos surrounding it. So Baby Reindeer is a semi-fictionalized autobiographical TV show by stand-up comedian Richard Gadd about the time that he had a stalker, and he recounts his sexual assault and abuse and grooming by an older writer. If it sounds dark, that's because it is, but it's also quite funny in some parts, quite earnest. There's 7 episodes and it goes through him trying and failing to be a stand-up comedian, working at a pub, and meeting Martha, his stalker. That's the basic gestalt of the TV show. Now, what I liked about it, because I binged it, it's so bingeable. The episodes are like 30 minutes each. It's really compelling. I watched it all in one go. And then when my boyfriend decided to watch it, we binged it in a few days again. So I've seen it like 2 times now. And I've rewatched some of it with some of my mates and stuff. It's really well done. The soundtrack is brilliant. I like how upfront, because Richard's fictionalized alter ego is Donnie Dunn in the show. So I like how Donnie via Richard, or Richard via Donnie, is very upfront about all of his shortcomings. And he has many. He's almost excruciatingly honest about who he is as a person. I absolutely could not be that honest about myself on a TV show. And it's so uncomfortable. The first time I watched it, the first few episodes, they're just like grit your teeth, him failing at doing his stand-up. I hate seeing people bomb. You kind of like biting your fist as you're watching it, being like, oh no, him talking to the stalker for the first time, and loaded thing to say, encouraging the behavior, at least in the first episode, right? And you know where it's going to end up. So you're a bit like, oh no, you're watching someone go down the wrong path at every single fork in the road, you know? And it's really compelling to watch almost this path of self-destruction that he's on. Because Richard Donnie Dunning isn't meant to be, Donnie Dunn, whatever. He's not meant to be a hero. He's not meant to be, it's not really like a good guys versus bad guys type of Hollywood Marvel. It's a very British TV show, I suppose. Though obviously the writer is a bad person. And Martha is very complicated. Like, the show is just a bloke telling his story, I suppose. And to me, it's about how sometimes people who have been traumatized or experienced trauma won't act rationally or logically. Like, do people act rationally or logically anyway most of the time? Probably not, because we're emotional, right? And I feel like it's also about facing your own internal bias, whether that's in the show, Donnie wanting to date trans women but not being comfortable in public with trans women because of his own fear of being perceived in a certain way. Or my own internal bias watching it. In the first episode, Martha comes into the pub and she looks sad and pitiable, and then she kind of lights up when Richard Donnie is talking to her and she's coming out with these stories, and I felt like, oh, this is sad. She's just a lonely person. She's just lonely. And then she starts being a little bit forward with him, wanting to go on a picnic together, and then they go for a coffee together. And she's being quite in his face, being like, oh, I want the Scotch broth. And again, I was like, oh, she's just lonely. She doesn't really understand social interactions very well. Like, it's very cringy, but also, oh, how sad. That was my own. And by the way, by episode 2, when like what happens at the end of episode 2 happens, you've probably already seen it. So spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, don't watch this video. Just go watch the show. At the end of episode 2, she tracks him down on the canal and gropes him. So by then I was like, oh yeah, no, I don't feel pity for this woman anymore. Obviously, but like in the lead up to that, you feel a bit like, oh, she just doesn't understand social conventions or etiquette. But I wouldn't have felt that way if the genders had been reversed. If it had been a man at a bar hitting on and being so in a woman's face. But then on the flip side, if Richard had been a woman and Martha had been a man, she in this flip scenario wouldn't, say it was me, because I used to work at bars. If a customer was being like quite inappropriate and a bit too like in my face and that type of thing, I wouldn't go on a coffee with them. And that's not to victim blame at all. I'm just saying how it is, that I wouldn't go on a coffee with them. I wouldn't underestimate them. I would probably get them barred if I felt that uncomfortable. But then if you're a man and a woman's making you feel uncomfortable, the other men at the bar, we'll get to the bar, the pub that he's working at, probably wouldn't have taken it seriously. Well, they didn't take it seriously when he tried to get her barred in the first place. You know, so it's weird how all these little gender roles play into it, because you flip it one way, that might not have happened, but then you flip it the other way. So it's interesting. It's interesting in that regard. And I had to confront my own gender bias in that sense. My own, oh, poor her. No. So some of the issues that have arisen with the show is, in the beginning, they say this is a true story, and they use emails because she emailed him like thousands of times and sent him messages and voicemails. They use the real emails that the real life Martha sent the real life Richard Gadd. And because Netflix just went out there and said this is a true story, it's a bit hard to tell what's fictionalized and what isn't, because it's a fictionalized retelling of a true story. It's a bit confusing. So I know something you don't know. No, I know some of what is fictionalized. Him being bad at stand-up. Probably there's videos of him online doing stand-up from years ago, and that's what's reflected in the show. But the show's set in, I think, 2015. I saw Richard do stand-up in 2016. It must have been 2016 because I was working at this specific pub in Liverpool Street at the time, and Brexit was going on during the year I worked at that pub. So it must be 2016. We had a underground bar area in our pub where sometimes you get people who would book it to do performances and stuff. So I was bartending that shift, and I got to see Richard do a stand-up routine. He calls it Monkey See, Monkey Do. And he runs on a treadmill. I don't know if it's 60 minutes or 90 minutes, but he runs on a treadmill for the entirety of his set. And I remember at the time he was talking about his sexual assault in that. And he was good, because I went up to him afterwards to chat to him about his performance. I was like, I don't know if I should be more impressed by your performance or by the fact that you ran for 90 minutes straight. But in the show, this would have been around the same time period that he was bombing a lot. So obviously that's a bit fictionalized, right? We chatted afterwards, and I was such a networking hoe. Back then, I was always just trying to network with comedians and people in TV and stuff. I don't know why, because I wasn't doing YouTube. I wasn't doing any of my own stuff really, like not really trying to put things out there, not really doing stand-up. So I think I just maybe thought, oh, well, if I network with people, then maybe by osmosis, blah, blah, blah. You know, I was just being stupid. I was in my early 20s, right? And I remember we exchanged social medias back then, and I noticed we had like 20 odd mutuals in common. And I was like, how do you know all of these people? And turns out, because the pub that he worked at, so I'm allowed to say this now because it's all out there, it's all in the public domain. The pub he worked at was the Hawley Arms, and I used to go to the Hawley Arms all the time in my early 20s. So yeah, him being bad at stand-up, fictionalized. Now, the stuff that's online is him kind of doing anti-comedy, which happens in the show. But the difference is people, obviously not all gigs would be the same, but like I've been to enough gigs where if someone's doing a bit of an anti-comedy routine, like they're messing things up on purpose. There's even like a play called The Play Where Everything Goes Wrong, where are you meant to mess up? I think one of my friends performed in that. There's a play where you're meant to mess up everything on purpose, right? So it probably is that, because it's kind of in the title. I've been to enough stand-up gigs where if someone was deliberately trying to bomb the audience, you can trust the audience to get that that's what they're doing, and they would find it funny. I've only ever seen people bomb twice in real life, and it was painful. It was absolutely painful. His stuff, people would laugh at it, like on the show. I mean, it was still kind of funny, right? This one bomb in particular, this person was just ranting about religion for 10 minutes straight, but just ranting. There weren't really any jokes in there, and they were getting red in the face. They were really angry, like concerned for their heart. I wonder where they are now. It was years ago. They might have had a heart attack by now. And another bomb. Again, this American person, they weren't, why did I whisper that as if like, don't want the Americans to hear this? There was this American stand-up. These are all like newer people. And again, she just wasn't making any jokes. It was very peculiar. So I've only really seen it happen like twice where people genuinely just didn't laugh, because it was not even an awkward laugh. So yeah, in the show, he works at a pub called The Heart, which people were saying was the Hawley Arms, and the stalker herself, which we'll get into in a minute, also said, oh, he was working at the Hawley Arms. Apparently, the Hawleys got posters of his show up now, so they're promoting it, being like, yeah, go watch the TV show. I used to go to the Hawley a lot in my early 20s, and I loved it. Kind of really miss it. Not sure I can trust myself to go back though. Used to have lockdowns in there. It was great. It was a great evening out going to the Hawley. But there's a bit in the show where the stalker glasses Richard. And I really want to know, my own curiosity, I want to know, like, was that fictionalized or did that actually happen? Because if that actually happened and it was covered up, then kind of really poor form from the manager and the team there. Weird though. So I don't recall ever seeing him at the Hawley. And I did go enough, but I was just drunk and high the whole time. So maybe he was there. Which then leads me to think, or if he was working there at the same time, because remember, it was a few years later in 2016 when I went to, so maybe he was working at the Hawley when I used to go in. But then was the stalker, was the real life Martha there as well? Did I ever speak to her whilst high? Because that is 100%, you have to understand, audience. I've met and spoken to like basically everyone in England. It's kind of concerning. That sounds like a me thing that I would have done. Spoken to a stalker whilst coked up. Yeah, probably. So the chaos that has occurred since this, because it was on Netflix, it's had like 20 plus million viewers. The chaos that has occurred since is, and obviously this was always going to happen, internet detectives, armchair detectives online tracked down the real Martha by cross-referencing the Twitter posts, you know, just, again, it's all out there now. So, and seeing as the real life Martha, Fiona has gone on to Piers Morgan, has gone on to the newspapers. I feel like it's okay to talk about. Had she not gone on to Piers Morgan, I probably would have just kept saying Martha to try and like protect identities, but she clearly doesn't care. So it's all fine. Basically, people took some of the emails from the show, put them into things like Twitter, and found that she had added Richard on Twitter, being like, "You come around to hang my curtains," euphemism for having sex. So people found her instantly. After I watched the show, curiosity got the better of me. It took me within 5 minutes to find out the identity as well, because other people had done the work. It was that simple, you know? And I watched the show a few weeks ago. So yes, I went onto Facebook to see if I could see her statuses. And it was kind of, because she's saying it's not her, but then it kind of clearly is her, because she was putting up Facebook statuses like every minute about it. And in the show, she's emailing him like 100 times a day. So it was just obviously her. And she was also typing, because the emails in the show, they're all misspelled. And again, same thing. And it's all on her Facebook publicly. She's left her statuses public rather than private. But here's the issue. Like, I even feel a bit icky even saying all of this stuff, because it feels like, oh, encouraging people to go look. I think it's okay to be curious, and it's okay to look at things and lurk. I'm such a lurker. I love lurking Reddit. I love lurking forums. I don't like communicating with people. I prefer to lurk and like see what other people are talking about, you know? But I take massive issue with the idiots that have been interacting with her statuses and her social media and direct messaging her, as if we all didn't just watch the same TV show about how having a stalker will ruin your life, and people are messaging her or trying to give her grief or sending her death threats. Is there any critical thinking going on here? No. I think a big issue with true crime as a whole, as a genre, is the audiences can't be trusted to look but not touch. Again, human nature to be curious, but where's your sense of self-preservation? Why are you directly messaging a stalker, or like people who message like killers or whatever? Do they do that? Probably, you know? If anyone had ever bothered to ask, one of the meta-narratives of my own mockumentary about Paul Breach, the latter half of it is about how armchair detectives and people can't be trusted to not take things too far. Because the latter half of it is me speaking to an internet detective about Paul Breach, getting nowhere, and then actually going to a city, to Norwich myself, to go find him, because it was that's fictionalized, last spotted in Norwich, it was fictionalized, so we could get Jackmate on it, you know, if anyone had bothered to ask me about it, if anyone cared. And then it ends up with ultimately the fictionalized version of myself, the satirized version of myself, getting lumped with a restraining order from Jackmate because I tried to take it into my own hands. I tried to go find the perp. And I wrote it that way because at the time, what did I see? There was something, it actually pissed me off. There was something in the news. A woman had gone missing and the police were trying to find her. And after a few days, it turned into trying to find her body, you know? And people online started looking at maps and started trying to guess where she'd gone or where her body could be found. And then people online started harassing the husband of the wife, basically saying he did it, he killed her. And I remember it made me feel a little bit ill in that this man is now going through probably the worst moment of his life. His wife has gone missing. He doesn't know whether she's dead or alive. And en masse, like so many people on the internet are accusing him of murdering her. Turns out she died. I think she drowned in a river, because this was all post hoc when I started scripting. So it had already come out that she died in a river. And it just made me feel like people were taking entertainment from someone's worst moment. I didn't like it. I thought those people in that particular situation were acting stupid. So then when it came to my own mockumentary, I kind of wanted to like lightly incorporate that into my satirized character by having me be an idiot who tries to go solve a crime themselves and just gets whacked with a restraining order. You know, that was my thought process. Not that anyone ever asked, but there you go. So I find that when it comes to true crime, obviously not like the entire audience, like a lot of people can just be responsible, or they can keep to their own pockets of the internet and won't directly like interact or like try and message these people. But it's a recurring enough problem. What was it? It's almost like an entitlement in a way, isn't it? Like there was something with a YouTuber who did true crime, and then she took autopsy reports from a police about a dead child and then put them together in a video and paywalled it on Patreon, and everyone was like, yo, what the fuck? You're charging people £6 to see the autopsy reports of a child? Well, there's that like weird entitlement of, oh, I've seen this thing, I've been entertained by it, I want to know more. It's human nature to want to know more. I always want to know more stuff, but also you have to have like self-preservation and self-awareness to like stop yourself from doing something maybe unethical, like the autopsy report. Now, it's all well and good me saying that. I feel like any goodwill that I've got with you guys may now be tested, right? Because again, look, but don't touch. I mean, it's difficult because in the show, the character is clearly mentally unwell. And I'm not going to say that about another person that I've never met, but she's based upon a real life person. And the real life person is very, let's just say, contradictory in what she says. And her statuses are public, so it's public domain, but at the same time, it just feels like a bit of an ethical can of worms. I don't want to rock the boat, but I will say one of her statuses when this all came out and people were being like, it's you're the person from Baby Reindeer, one of her statuses said how she never knew Gadd, but he works at the Hawley, he's a druggie, he's gay, he has STDs, and actually he stalked me. So, like, did you not know him? Because that's quite a lot of stuff to know about a person you claim to don't know. That's just the one thing I found funny. Let me have that. So there's also in episode 4, there's a whole episode about how Richard was groomed and assaulted by a writer or a producer in the entertainment industry. So, of course, people tried to find out who that is in real life. And people online targeted a producer, which I'm not going to say his name because it's not really fair, is it? To which Gadd himself had to put on Instagram, I've worked with him before and I admire him. Stop investigating. It's not the point of the show. Please just enjoy the show. And people still turned around because the producer put on their Twitter, and people still turned around and said, well, he didn't exactly say it's not you. He just said he admired you. And it's like so chaotic. It's so chaotic. Then a few days ago, because I waited like 2 weeks to do this video because so much just keeps happening and coming out. A few days ago, Richard Osman said that he knows who the abuser is in the industry. He knows whose it is. It's like, okay, good for you. It just reeks of the whole, oh, I know something you don't know. I tried to do at the beginning of this. Like, why are you dangling a carrot to the masses about a sex offender? Okay, but like, it's not the win or the look that you think it is. It's just, why would you say something like that? It's just a bit weird. Oh, we know who it is. We're not going to do anything about it. Because then on like comments of that article in which he said this, people were saying things like, well, you're harboring a criminal if you don't come out and say who it is. It's just such a can of worms. It's like, bro, just say nothing at all. I don't understand the thought process. I feel like he was on a podcast when he said it. And if so, I think that's the there's a podcast effect, right? You just start yapping and you end up saying too much because you forget that it's going to go out there. Richard Osman claims that everyone knows who the real life Darian from Baby Reindeer is. Speaking on his The Rest is Entertainment podcast, told you, that's what it is. Just people yapping too much and not editing enough. There also came out a Twitter thread about Richard himself when in the show he has a transgender girlfriend, and the Twitter thread was about one of the actresses who was approached by him, who's also a trans woman. She was approached by him being like, oh, I've got this part in this TV show coming up. Would you like to audition for it? But also I want to go on a date with you. And it went viral enough on Twitter that Trisha Paytas saw it because she talks about it in her show that maybe sometimes I listen to if I'm doing my makeup. But, you know, obviously there's a power imbalance. Well, they used to just call that a casting couch, right? But then she also said in her thread something about how my therapist, when I described him to her, my therapist said, he sounds like he has BPD. I don't know why you'd put that out there. I don't know what therapist would. I spoke to a lot of therapists in my time. I don't know what therapist would just like try and diagnose someone when they've never met them. I feel like there are their own issues there on that side of Twitter with that Twitter thread that I don't really want to get into because I just don't know enough to formulate a proper opinion on. Because that's the thing with YouTube. You form opinions too fast, you'll get shown up a week later. So, but I'm just going to put that out there that I've seen that. I've seen that happened in the aftermath of the show as well. I did see that because I am omniscient, aka chronically online. There was also then a think piece, an entire think piece that I read that I felt was quite biased against Gadd. I think that was the point of the think piece. And I forgot where I read it, but one of like the first points of, oh, maybe there's more to the story than Gadd is saying, was that in the show, Martha is a lawyer and she has a degree, but her emails are borderline illiterate with all the misspellings. So the author of this think piece said that was the first red flag to them that there is an inconsistency or something not making sense. And they kind of used that first point to go into a few other points. And the overall point of the think piece was to insinuate that like Gadd is maybe lying or painting himself as more innocent than he actually is or whatever, which isn't, I didn't come away from it thinking, oh, Gadd's like this. I think he was very honest in how he is addicted to chaos and he encouraged some of the behavior because it felt like someone was actually seeing him for the first time. You know, he was honest about how he did the wrong things, how when he went to the police, he kind of, downplayed the severity of the situation. He didn't say about how the stalker had attacked his girlfriend. But anyway, going back to that first point that this think piece made, that made no sense to me because one quick glance at real Martha's socials, public socials, would show that the TV show was very accurate in the regard that she makes a lot of spelling mistakes. Like that was super accurate. And her nature is quite contradictory. Oh, I never knew him, but he stalked me and he had all these issues. So that's hardly an issue with the show's storytelling. It's quite true to life, that aspect of it, you know? And I think the think piece, either in the think piece itself or in the comments below, I remember there was kind of, it felt to me a bit of a nasty line about how if you look at his shows in Edinburgh, Gadd's shows at Edinburgh Festival, every year he has a new trauma to exploit by himself. And I kind of felt that was unfair because a lot of people turn their suffering into art and we seem okay with that. Is it okay that they do it and not him just because he has been upfront about the fact that like he's not, is he a good person? Is he a bad person? He's a person. You know, we all do fucked up things occasionally or we get things wrong or whatever. It had undertones of victim blaming because Gadd's a bloke and that didn't sit too well with me. Now, the character of Martha did incite a lot of sympathy. When the real life stalker was found, there was a lot of people defending her, being like, oh, she's mentally ill. And yet someone can be mentally ill. Hello. But that doesn't mean that innocent people should be collateral damage. Just putting out there. So real life Martha, I feel uncomfortable like saying her name's Fiona because I don't want to get targeted. I'll be fine. Has also recently gone on to Piers Morgan and it's exploded. I'm going to do a video separately reacting to it. I've not seen it yet. I've just had a lot of people message me because like Baby Reindeer is all me and my friends have been talking about for weeks. I've had a lot of my mates message me being like, you have to see it. I do feel like it's exploitative on Piers' end because if she is mentally ill, then that's just exploiting a vulnerable person. And I feel like there's a bigger conversation to be had about how maybe Netflix with this TV show, because it's not like they hid her identity that well. She was identified within minutes by the internet. I feel like Netflix hasn't really done their due diligence there, in the same way that if this show had been picked up by BBC or Channel 4 or one of like the main TV production services in this country, they probably, to protect against any types of lawsuits, they probably would have been a bit more tighter with it. And I feel like with Piers Morgan, Good Morning Britain or This Morning or BBC News probably wouldn't have invited Martha on to talk about the show in the way that Piers has. Like, at the baseline, it's about defending yourself from lawsuits, innit? And I think Piers he's always say what you want about him, and I do with What's Some History, but he knows how to jump on a trending topic and use it to his advantage. He knows how to be opportunistic in that way. I mean, he was a journalist, right? But maybe in wanting to be the first person that gets that proper exclusive interview with the real life Martha, maybe, I don't know, it's weird because it's like there's a car crash right now happening in front of us and we're just spectators to it, because I guess we're kind of the problem. There's a market for this type of stuff. It's conflicting for me because I'm a YouTuber and I like discussing trending topics and I like the discussions that go on in my comment section, and I like trying to take a nuanced approach to these types of issues. But at the same time, am I part of the problem by making a video about it? Even if I am calling out people for their behaviors or being like, maybe you should reflect on, you know, what, like, why are you messaging a stalker? Like, think about that. But am I still adding to the fire? Or is that me just having a grandiose sense of self, thinking that, oh, I'm actually, like, my channels are much bigger. So I think my channel is like quite small. Like Piers Morgan's got 2 million followers. I got a tenth of that. So relatively it is small compared to him. I'm hardly adding gasoline to the flames, am I, of the shit show. I'm just adding maybe a little pinprick of flame to it, right? And as humans, it's within our nature to gossip and talk about things because it strengthens social bonds. It works out who can be trusted, who cannot. You know, I've got evolution working against me here. I just really liked the show, so I wanted to talk about it. And then all this stuff happened. It's like a chain event of things. It's like the domino meme of something happening here and then Harambe happening like years later. So people have been theorizing, why did Gadd do this in the first place? Some people think that Richard knew this would all explode, that people would then be internet detectives, and maybe he's done it as a form of revenge against Martha and against Darian, especially because in the show Martha actually goes to jail, but in real life that didn't happen because I think Gadd said that he didn't feel comfortable sending someone mentally ill to prison or something like that. Who knows, you know? Except if it is as a form of revenge, people haven't even found out who the real Darian is yet, so it's not like that good, is it? I guess my theory is that the show shows us, but then what the show shows us is via Richard himself, and he's an unreliable narrator, because can you be truly objective about your own life as much as he has tried to? And he's put out a lot on the table for people to dissect in a way that is unflinchingly raw, in a way that I couldn't. But the show does show us that Richard is addicted to chaos. And the aftermath of Baby Reindeer has been completely chaotic. So my theory is, I don't reckon that he knew it would be as big as it has been. He's been a successful stand-up comedian for years, I'd say. Maybe he'd say differently, but when I saw him, he was good. He won awards at Edinburgh. Baby Reindeer was an Edinburgh Fringe show before Netflix discovered it and wanted to turn it into a TV show. So even though he'd been successful for years, that doesn't mean he would necessarily assume the Netflix show would do well. So I don't really think that he's done it out of revenge, because people say, oh, he must have known how people would react to it. And I would contest that a little bit, because I think people like us, like me, like you watching the video, we're kind of chronically online. I'll wake up, first thing I do is check my socials. It's bad, a doom scroll. We're kind of chronically online. And we know how much people love being internet detectives. I did a whole mockumentary about it that no one saw. I'm not bitter. But we know that's how people react. But here's the thing, and this is purely anecdotal. I don't know him as a person. Despite us being kind of involved in the same clique at one point, years and years ago. I don't know him as a person. I only met him once. But I've known and do know quite a few stand-up comedians at varying levels of success on the circuit. And I find, and this is anecdotal, I find that the majority of the stand-ups that I know, they only really use social media as a form of publicity and promoting their own stuff. And they're not embedded in the internet culture like you and I are. Though one of my stand-up friends, he's been doing Alex Pankhurst, he's been doing script editing, sorry. He's not writing my scripts. He's been helping me edit my super long book content ones, yeah, just because they're so long and it's nice to have like a fresh pair of eyes on them, because I just get so normalized to how toxic these books are. So I'm getting a little bit of extra help with it, right? And he's only a few years older than me, but some of the references that he makes, I'm a bit like, what is that? That's like some TV show from the 80s in Britain. And the references I make are very just like online, using words like something coded, very TikTok. Even comedians that I know that have podcasts don't really get bogged down too much in internet culture. Could be wrong. Maybe Richard loves doom scrolling. Maybe he's constantly searching up his name. Maybe he'll see this video. Maybe he should come on my channel so we can talk this out properly, so we can get to the bottom of this. I would assume, anecdotally, that maybe he's the type of comedian that just uses social media to promote, and he wouldn't necessarily really, maybe that's me just giving him a massive benefit of the doubt, because I've recognized recently that I tend to give I've recognized in the past like month that I tend to give male comedians the benefit of the doubt sometimes. I don't know why. Is it because like I've spent my entire life looking up to specifically male comedians? And is that just because society has spent decades telling women that they're not funny? So then a lot of the TV shows that I consumed as a teenager were dominated by men and male comedians. Is that where it is? Looking up to Noel Fielding, looking up to Russell Brand. Good Lord, thank God I shed him like a lizard shedding its skin. Maybe I'm just giving him a little bit of benefit of doubt because I have a tiny bit of bias towards men I think are funny. Maybe he's not innocent at all and he's some sort of mastermind that... No, because realistically, it was a stand-up show for years. Realistically, he wasn't thinking 6 years ago, oh yeah, one day this will get on Netflix and then that will show the people who hurt me because the internet will track them down. I don't think revenge was really his idea. I think he had a story that he really wanted to tell and he wanted to put out there. And when someone like Netflix comes along and I assume offer you a good chunk of money and huge publicity, you take it, Regardless, he should come on my channel and we should chat about this because that'll be interesting for me. Meanwhile, whilst all of this has been going on, here's what I love. I checked his Instagram. Richard's just been I think on holiday in LA, in America, whilst all of this is going on. And low-key love that for him. That is so chaotic. Like, people are arguing, they're at each other's throats, they're incorrectly condemning others. The stalker's gone on to Piers Morgan. He's just on holiday. Love that for him. So funny. Saying that though, say Richard had no idea that this would blow up and people would act as people do on the internet. There would have been someone at Netflix that could have told him, or maybe they did tell him and he went, whatever, like, let's just do it anyway. There would have been people at Netflix who would know, because Netflix puts out so much true crime, they would know how fervent, frothing at the bit people get for true crime content. And really, there's a large conversation to be had about this and about all of our own personal responsibilities. Is it okay to just lurk and look but not touch like I do? Like, it's not okay to be messaging people who might be of unsound mind. It's not okay if you're a stranger just to be messaging someone because there's no self-preservation. You could be putting yourself in danger. Is it okay to just look? But I do. Well, obviously I'm inclined to say yes, but I'm biased towards myself. I could be wrong. Objectively. I can't be objective about my own behaviour. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong for even doing this video. Nah, be all right. But because the public can't really be trusted with this type of content, is it even ethical that true crime content is made in the way that it's made in the first place? Or should organisations like Netflix actually do more to hide identities better? Is this a conversation a lowly YouTuber like myself should be having? Probably not. But I just thought I'd put it out there to my own audience because no one else is going to see this. Because at its face value, it's a compelling, really interesting TV show. And then when you dig deeper, wow, what a load of chaotic nonsense has arised from this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. What do you think about the show? What do you think about the motivations behind making the show and putting it out there in the first place? Just tell me. I need to know. I need guidance on this because I'm not sure where I stand, other than maybe don't message stalkers. That's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. I got channel memberships and stuff now. Check that out, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.